we just had an interesting item on our bulletin. It's been reported by the Sydney Morning Herald this morning. It's police in Queensland, Victoria and WA have been using QR code and check-in data as well as contact tracing at least 6 times for criminal matters. It doesn't sound like it's that many times, but some have said that that's a breach of trust. What do you make of that?
Well, I think on any occasion, particularly without a warrant, is a breach of trust. I mean, we don't want a situation where people, including criminals, decide not to use QR codes to check in because they worry that it will be used for secondary or other purposes. I think maintaining the trust and integrity of the system should be of the highest importance. So you shouldn't have the information used for purposes other than what we all led to believe it's there for, which is public health and contact tracing purposes.
So police shouldn't be able to access it to use towards potentially solving a crime.
Well, they should only be able to access it with the normal protections, like you'd need to seek a warrant and get the approval of a magistrate, like you would to access someone's mobile phone records or banking records. But there needs to be some sort of threshold of protection there. And I understand a number of state police agencies, according to the media report at least, have sought this and have been denied. But the problem is when you've got police agencies that aren't actually seeking the permission to use that data, that I think is highly problematic.
Yeah. And just on to Stuart Robert. Did he wander off script yesterday by saying targets weren't set in stone despite it being what states have all signed up to?
Well, I didn't see the full text of the interview, but I don't think he did. But he made the point. I mean, this current modelling that we've got and the targets that we've got are based upon the Delta variant. They're informed by the experience overseas, and it's based upon the kind of data set within Australia, if you like. Now, obviously, things can change, and he was quite right to point that out. Things have changed multiple times during this crisis. I think later in the interview, he foreshadowed that, if we had a new variant, well, we would obviously need to change the modelling and the target. If a new variant is more contagious or more deadly or any number of other things, well, look, of course, the public would rather expect us to alter those things. But based upon what we know now and where we are now, and with the variant we've got now and with the level of the protection that vaccines offer us now, those targets are fixed as far as I'm concerned.
And that's when all internal borders should be opened, 80% double vaccination rate. When the national average hits that point, that's when internal borders should end, in your opinion?
Well, look, the National Cabinet Agreement was when the national vaccination rate is 80% of eligible adults double vaccinated, plus every state and territory as well, right? So it's each state plus the federal government. Now, in my view, yes, that is when they should open. That's what the National Cabinet agreed. That's what the Doherty Institute modelling argues is safe. By all means, if we can reach a higher number than that, I'm all for it. I think we should be supportive of that. But I think that should be the threshold at which we begin to open, well, not begin, we do have no more internal state borders. We don't have lockdowns except if strictly necessary. We can have the return of vaccinated Australians back to Australia without a cap and without hotel quarantine. I think those things are all incredibly important to get back to normal life.
Gladys Berejiklian is suggesting now that hotel quarantine should be a thing of the past as we move towards home quarantine. Do you believe that hotel quarantine has done its dash?
I think it has for vaccinated travellers and unvaccinated Australians. If people have been double dose vaccinated with a recognised vaccine, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, according to standards and documentary proof that we accept, then I think we should be looking at home quarantine, because hotel quarantine is resource intensive. It limits the number of people that can be coming to Australia at any one time. It's unattractive if you're a business traveller or a tourist or anyone who wants to come to Australia for something less than several months. It puts a whole lot of people off, and we're not going to get our economy and businesses and lives back to normal if we maintain it. So, it always needs to be a risk-based approach, but this is always one of the targets we've been pushing forward towards.
Yeah, I mean, the details are going to be worked out eventually, but, I mean, how do you police hotel quarantine is the big question that a lot of people have, and at what level would you be comfortable with?
In terms of how do you police home quarantine? Yeah. Look, I think there's a range of, technical solutions. I've had a few people in my own electorate who've developed things that have brought it to me that allow you to, geofence someone's phone or provide a kind of a random ping-in or spot checks, Singapore's done some things, I think, around ankle bracelets. I don't know if we need to go that far, but even Taiwan has something with just
that's an interesting point. I'm glad you brought up bracelets, actually. So why would you think that shouldn't be an option?
Well, I prefer that there are things that are done with a little more, a little less restrictions on someone's liberty. Look, an ankle bracelet just makes you feel like you're a criminal,
Look
right?
like a criminal, yeah.
Yeah. But I think if people can have an app on their phone, which I understand Taiwan does, for instance, or any number of other things, we should look at that. I'd also make the point here that I don't think it's necessarily going to be the case that people need to do 14 days at home quarantine. If they're double vaccinated, if they've tested negative 72 hours prior to departure, if they're test negative on arrival, I would expect that the evidence tells you this, that it's something like 3 to 7 days is all that's required.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Dave, just a final one. The UN has put an end date on the coal mining industry in 10 years. That's not very far away. Is that even possible?
Well, we certainly need to be transitioning away from coal as a fuel source. I think coal, metallurgical coal, that is coal that's used to make steel from iron ore, which is a big part of Australian exports, still has some considerable future because we haven't got a commercially competitive way to reduce iron ore and turn it into steel. But look, the timeline in this, I think the IPCC report makes clear that we need to be making this transition faster, which means we need to be transitioning to cleaner energy faster. In Australia, that journey is well underway. Our emissions are down 21% since 2005. Other countries need to begin making that transition as well.
China. Yeah.
The big emitters.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.